Hello Year 6 and welcome to our next reading session. So we're going to carry on with, as we did last week, we're going to do our bit by bit, and then we're going to also look at our fluency. So on the school website you will find both resources that you will need. You'll see the bit by bit part, which you will need in front of you to highlight and to underline things, and you'll also see the fluency extract ready for you on the school website. So make sure you've got both of those in front of you so you can carry on with this lesson. Brilliant. You might also want some colour and pencils. That might probably make it a little bit easier to do the bit by bit section. Okay, let's have a look. So we're carrying on with our story from Floodlands. So we read a little bit further last week, and we got to the part where Zoe was speaking to William. She went to go and speak to William about him leaving with her, we've sort of left the Munchkin part a little bit unanswered at the time for the time being, but we were sort of moving on to looking at William, and she's trying to convince William that he should come with her and that he should also leave on her boat, and we're going to see what happens with all of that. Okay, so this is the first section that you're going to be looking at. So it's on the screen for you, but it's also on the school website. So what I want you to do is I want you to read through that section. I want you to underline any words that you don't know. Could be a word or it could be a phrase, anything that you're not sure of. Write down any questions you've got, anything that it's starting to make you think about, anything you're starting to wonder about the story. And then I would like you to summarise the paragraph, summarise the page, basically, and what happened on this page, what did we find out. So give yourself a good 5 minutes to read through, underline everything you need, and then when you're ready, press play, and I will put my version on what I've done by myself. So off you go with that first task. Okay, if you're ready now, okay, we're going to have a look at mine and see what I've done. Okay, so I'll read through a little bit for you. So, oh, he'll go all right. Leave this lot to it. How do you know? William didn't answer. Instead, he said, so what about your parents then? You're on your own? Zoe told him the story of that horrible night. They left you? That's terrible. No, said Zoe angrily. They didn't leave me. It was an accident. There was no choice. Right, I underlined no choice because I wondered whether or not we understood what that phrase means. But that phrase means there was no other option. They had no other choice. Now, you might disagree with this. I think I slightly disagree. I think there was a choice to be made. I think her parents could have chose differently, and they were escaping. Maybe they thought Zoe was escaping too, and they didn't realise. But I don't know. I'd ask your parents. I don't feel like many parents would make the same choice as what Zoe's did. Because didn't she decide to put her dad on the boat with her mum? I'm sure that's what happened. You'll have to remind me. It's been a while since I read the start. Okay, I see, said William. Well, I suppose it wouldn't be the only time it happened. Same stories over and over again, over and over. So William's saying there that this is not the first time he's heard that sort of story, about a parent leaving their child or abandoning their child. He says that these stories happen over and over. He's heard them loads of times. You never saw them here, did you? Maybe a year ago, something like that. Remember, she's not quite sure how long she was on her own on the island. She said time seemed to pass differently. She wasn't sure how long it had been. So she didn't even know if it was a year ago or if it was longer. William shook his head. How would I know, he said, though not unkindly. So he's saying, I'm not going to know if I saw your mum, because he's not, is he? And he's not saying it in an unkind way. It's just a fact, isn't it? How would he know? So he's not meaning it in a nasty way. He's not meaning to say, how would I know, in a horrible way. But it's true. How would he know? He'd have no clue, would he? No one uses proper names anymore, do they? I underlined that, proper name. Now, if you think about the characters in the book, Doobie, Munchkin, Spat, they're not normal names, are they? They're not proper names. And so proper names are sort of the names that are given to you by your parents that you've grown up with, whereas those names, Doobie, Munchkin, Spat, they're nicknames, aren't they, that someone has given them. And also, none of them have got last names that they've told us about. And that's what I think it means. I think it means, by it says proper names, it means like a first name and a last name. And the characters in our story don't seem to have a first name and a last name, maybe because they don't need them anymore. What's your last name anyway? For a second, Zoe was stunned. She thought she'd forgotten it, her own name. With a struggle, she fished it out of her memory. So I underlined that, she fished it out of her memory. it means it's in there somewhere, but it's like not near the top. It's not easily rememberable. So things that you can remember quite easily, you kind of think about it as like they're on the top of your brain. Okay, they're right there. When you need it, it's there. That information is there. Whereas this, it's like she can't find it. She's having to fish for it. She's having to really think about it to remember it. So she's having to search her memory for her own name. So she can't remember her own name easily. Now that's quite incredible, isn't it? When you think about that, that tells you a lot about Zoe and a lot about what she's been through. Black, she said eventually. Really? Black? That's nearly the same as mine. Blake. See? He showed Zoe the name on his book again. Remember, he said earlier that he had got the same name as the person who wrote that book. So he's William, isn't he? So William Blake. But Zoe wasn't listening. How could she have nearly forgot her own name? Well, anyway, William went on. If you head west, you'll find dry land again sooner or later. Is that the best you can do? Snapped Zoe. I can't just row off into the middle of nowhere again. I can't. William turned and looked at Zoe, then away. He got up. So we've gone through the little bits that I wasn't sure of, and then I did write a few questions. So I put, why can't she remember a name? And maybe you've got an answer to this, why she can't remember a name. Maybe it's because she's not used it in so long. Maybe it's because she doesn't need it anymore. Maybe it's because there's so many more important things that she's trying to remember that her name is just drifted away because it's not important to her anymore. You know? And then did her parents really have a choice? Kind of already talked about this. I do wonder. I think it was a very difficult situation for Zoe and her parents, and maybe this is coming from an adult perspective, but I feel like maybe there was another choice to be made. Maybe that Zoe should have been put on that boat before her dad got on, maybe. I wonder what you think. Email me and tell me what you think, because I'm curious. Okay, and then summarising what happened. William says that he doesn't remember Zoe's parents, and Zoe's upset to realise she doesn't even remember her own name. So this section here is kind of slow. Nothing major is really happening in the story, but this kind of the big bit is we kind of get the sense that Zoe is a bit desperate to find out information about her parents, and she does keep asking about them, even though she doesn't really want to ask, and she doesn't really want to know, because if they went to the island, good things wouldn't have happened, because nothing good seems to happen on this island, and we know that they kill outsiders. So I don't think Zoe would want them to have been there, but at the same time, she's kind of desperate for any sort of news on them to find out whether or not they are alive or not. And also, it's kind of just remembering that she doesn't even know her own name. I mean, things are just terrible in this world. I'm really, really glad we're not in this world, because it is pretty bad at the moment. Right, so that was the first section. So now you've got the second bit, which I want you to have a go at. It's the same thing again. So underline any words or phrases you don't know. Any questions, write them down, and then summarise the paragraph. So give yourself another 5 or so minutes to do that section. Off you go. Okay, let's assume you're done. And let's move on. So well done for getting on with that. Please send me the pictures, because I do think they look really, really good when they're all done properly. We were getting really good at it when we were in school. Okay, so this is the one I've done, and I've underlined some things I thought maybe we wouldn't know. So William, she said quickly, I'm sorry. Look, I've got a boat. You know that, don't you? It's how I got here, and it's how I'm going to get away. Yes, you get away, said William. In a boat. Good idea. Come with me, said Zoe. I'll go west where there is higher ground. So I'll go west. So I underline that. So that's talking about going west, and it's towards the mainland. So if you think about it, if you do it in front of you, because I don't know if this will do it backwards, but north, east, south, west. So Norwich is on the east side of the coast of Britain, okay? So she was at Norwich. So she's having to go towards the mainland, which is west, the opposite direction. So she's trying to go west towards the mainland. And then where there's higher ground, because Norwich, that land around Norwich is really flat, which is why it's all flooded. So you're saying going to higher ground if they go west. And then this next bit here, west, that's right, your salvation lies to the west of Uden Aden. Now remember, Uden Aden is the sea. We know that that's the sea from earlier on. Salvation, I wonder if you got this one. Salvation is a really good word, actually, but it just means to be saved. If your salvation is the thing that will save you. So saying the thing that will save you is in the west, okay, where the mainland is. That will be the thing that saves her and stops her from dying, because that's where people are, that's where probably their food is, much better than it was before. I'm going to go and look for Leica tonight when everyone's sleeping. Leica, you say? Remember, Leica's the name of a boat. It's just the name of my boat, that's all. And Zoe could see the change in William happen before her eyes. He was starting to lose it again. Right, starting to lose it again. So I underlined that, but it means he's starting to act strange and weird again. So he's going odd. So you know how sometimes he's really normal and sometimes he's really not? This bit here, it's saying that he's starting to lose it. He's starting to act strangely again. He's slipping off into his other world. You think it's just the name of your boat, Laika? Zoe is the little girl lost. So Laika is the little girl lost. Do father, mother weep? Where can Laika sleep? Lost in the desert wild is your little child. So the name of her boat, Laika, is also from a poem, the poem that he just says there. And in that poem, it's a little girl lost, a little girl that is lost without her family. So it's kind of like, I don't know, it's kind of symmetrical, isn't it? That the name of her boat, Laika, is also the name of a girl that is lost, because Zoe is also a lost girl. So it's the author chose that like symmetry there to have the same name of the boat, Laika, as is the girl that is lost. So it kind of gives you that symmetry between two things, which is interesting. That's a really but that's a really in-depth thing that sort of you'll do a bit more at secondary school. William, you're not listening. Come with me. I'll get you out of here. He looked at her sharply. Now, sharp is an interesting word there, because when you hear the word sharp, you think it means like pointy, and that's not what this means. So when he looks at her sharply, he looks at her really quickly or suddenly. So it's a sharp look because he's turning around to look at her very sharply, okay? And then he says, why would you want to do that? So she's saying, come with me. And he's saying, why would you want to do that? Why would you want to take me with you? Zoe was puzzled by his question. So puzzled means confused. But it was a good one. She'd made it a rule not to trust anyone, and it had seen her through all right. And William obviously felt the same way. Why? William said again. Why me? There's plenty of people. So we know Zoe didn't even trust her friend, did she, on the island? Was her friend Nicole? She didn't even trust her. She didn't trust her with the boat, didn't trust her to take her with her at all. And then in the end, she felt like she'd been proven right because her friend was the one that told everyone about a boat, and then she got chased off off Norwich, didn't she? So Zoe very much feels like she's right not to trust people, and she hasn't trusted people since her parents left. But William is different, and she's saying it here. She's made it a rule not to trust anyone. She decided she wasn't going to trust anyone, but she is trusting William. And there's a question of why that is. Why would she trust William when she's not trusting other people? And I think it's because she knows he's a nice person. There's nothing bad about William. He's a bit crazy, but he doesn't mean badly. And I think that's something that Zoe desperately needs, to believe in good, like believe in the good in people again, which she hasn't done for so long. So questions that I thought of when we were reading this, like what is her salvation? So our salvation is the West. Is it her parents, do you think? Do you think that's her salvation? Or do you think it's just getting to the mainland? Is that her salvation? Interesting. I don't know what you think. And why is he so shocked when she wants to take him? I don't know. What do you think? Have you got an answer for that? Why would he be so shocked? Is it because he's an adult and she's a child and he thinks that she'd want to save one of the other children? Or is it something different? I don't know. Interesting to find out. And then this is very simple. All that's happening on this page is Zoe's trying to convince William to escape with her. That is all that's happening on here. And we just sort of we start to wonder whether or not William will escape with her. Do you think he will? Doesn't sound like it from the end of this page, but I hope that he would. I hope that Zoe would get that. Zoe would get to take someone with her who is nice and isn't a bad person. I don't want her to take Doobie with her because Doobie is not a nice person and he doesn't particularly deserve to be saved. Whereas William, you just feel sorry for him, don't you? You just want him to sort of do all right. Okay, so that was your first lesson. So now get your fluency work in front of you and I will put that on the board. So your fluency. Last time we did this bite, I read it out and then you had a go at doing it. We'll do that again. So I'll read it once by myself and then you can join in the second time and then you can do some speed reading with this when we've finished the lesson. So it's talking about people that there's lots of people you could take. Younger, stronger, more used to you than I would be. Why put your trust in me? I don't know, said Zoe. I just want to. Suddenly shouts and the sounds of scuffling came from the porch of the cathedral. Zoe rushed to the door of the chapel where she and William had been sitting. At the door she froze. She could see well enough from there what was happening. A spy! It's a cat! Doobie, fetch Doobie! We found a spy! A young man was being pulled into the building by 4 eels. He looked terrified. Zoe wouldn't have known he wasn't another eel if he wasn't being dragged along by his arms. Doobie, hearing the fuss, came out of his room to meet them. It was no surprise to Zoe to see Spat was among the 4 who'd found the spy. Spat took hold of the spy's collar and threw him on the cold stone floor. Doobie, he said, we found this cat sneaking around outside. Did he have a boat? Asked Doobie quickly. A little too quickly, Zoe thought. I've sent Tolly and Soup to search the whole shore, but there's no sign of one. They must have dropped him off and then scarpered. Scarpered means sorry. Postman again. Scarpered means to like run away. So carry on. Doobie turned on the spy who lay quivering on the flagstones. Is that true? He snapped. Bravely or stupidly, the cat said nothing, and Doobie swung his boot into him, and Zoe looked away. Take him into my room. Let's find out what he's up to. Okay, so let's read that through again. Let's read it all together. Younger, stronger, more used to you than I would be. Why put your trust in me? I don't know, said Zoe. I just want to. Suddenly, shouts and the sounds of scuffling came from the porch of the cathedral. Zoe rushed to the door of the chapel where she and William had been sitting. At the door, she froze. She could see well enough from there what was happening. A spy. It's a cat. Doobie, fetch Doobie. We found a spy. A young man was being pulled into the building by 4 eels. He looked terrified. Zoe wouldn't have known he wasn't another eel if he wasn't being dragged along by his arms. Doobie, hearing the fuss, came out from his room to meet them. It was no surprise to Zoe to see Spat was among the 4 who'd found the spy. Spat took hold of the spy's collar and threw him on the cold stone floor. Doobie, he said, we found this cat sneaking around outside. Did he have a boat? Asked Doobie quickly. A little too quickly, Zoe thought. I sent Tolly and Soup to search the whole shore, but there's no sign of one. They must have dropped him and then scarpered. Doobie turned on the spy, who lay quivering on the flagstones. Is that true? He snapped. Bravely, or stupidly, the cat said nothing. Doobie swung his boot into him, and Zoe looked away. Take him into my room. Let's find out what he's up to. Okay, so that's that first little bit there. Your second bit here, you've got this second page here. This second page, I want you to do some speed reading. So you can pause this video, set a timer for a minute and see how much you can read. Make sure you are reading all of it and you are keeping up with our reading, because when we get back to school, it's going to be very difficult if we're all at different points. You need to be keeping up. Send me your bit by bits, please, and let me know your reading speeds for Floodland as well. Okay, that's the end of our reading session. So well done, and I will see you soon. Bye.